So I have the book today. I'm going to read just the introduction and the notes part, just because that's pretty long as it is, and let's just see how this goes, okay? So first I want to say that I'm going to just say there's a trigger warning with this book. If you have been abused, it might, trigger. So just want to put that out there. It might even trigger myself. I might cry. I don't know. I am a survivor of sexual abuse as well. It's happened 3 times in my life, and I only got justice 1 time. So the other 2 times, well, one I did report, but then it turned into like a he said, she said. So that was bullshit. I gave them all kinds of evidence too. It was crazy. I went through a lot of shit with that one. And then that was Ted Petrie. That was the offender. And then the last one was Rob Fisher. He did that. I didn't report him though, because at that point, what was the point? I wasn't getting anywhere with the other one. So anyway, so that's what my whole thing is. So that's kind of why I wanted to read this book too, is I kind of feel like I relate to her pain in a way, even though she went through a totally different experience and scenarios and with totally different people. But anyway, I did make this video so no kids were allowed, because it's definitely not something for kids. So yeah, I had a kid's book that I read last time. So if you want to go to see that live, you can read that book with me. I did that already. What else did I want to say? Oh, I might cry. I think I told you that. And to give you a little backstory, Virginia met Epstein when she was like 19 or 20. She was working at Mar-a-Lago Resort. She was born August 9th, 1983. And that's funny in a way, because my birthday, she was born a day before me. So we are Leos together. So we have that in common as well. And she was 41 years old, supposedly by suicide. I don't believe that at all. She was murdered by Prince Andrew. Let's all just call it for what it is. And also, she was married and had 3 kids, and she adored her husband. She loved her kids. She got hit by a bus. They tried to take her out once before, and she lived through that. So, like, for her to commit suicide, no, don't buy it. Never will. We all know the truth. So let's get started here. So it's called Nobody's Girl by Virginia Roberts Giuffre. It says, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. So let me just get my reading glasses on. All right. I got the large print too. So Nobody's Girl. Dedicated to my survivor sisters and to anyone who has suffered sexual abuse. Some names have been changed to protect the privacy of the people involved. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'll get a little closer. All right, let me take a sip of my soda quick and we'll get started. Don't mind my outfit. I was out shoveling snow. So I got my snow pants on. I got my Grinch robe on. All that. Hi, Mine One Gamer 1356. Thanks for joining. I'm just reading a book, so stay with me or don't. It's okay. I'll try to say hi to people when I can, okay? Because I got to pay attention to one thing at a time. So, all right, the first thing, a note from Virginia Roberts Giuffre's collaborator. So, collaborator. Writing a book with someone. All right, these are slipping off. I'll have to tighten them. They're too loose right now. All right, I should have tightened them before. God damn it. I was going to. Anyway, hopefully I can see. All right, I'm going to have to bring it up closer. Okay. The collaborator. Writing a book with someone is always an intimate exercise. During every project I've worked on, at some point I must ask the author some extremely personal questions. Next, I bolster their memories, no matter how vivid, by working to corroborate them, reviewing all pre-existing documentation, and talking to others in their lives who may have witnessed or known about the events being described. In that sense, I process The process I followed while working with Virginia to get her story right was nothing new for me. Two things, however, made Virginia's memoir different. First, the stories she needed to share were devastating beyond measure for her to tell. Second, several of the characters in these stories were among the wealthiest and most powerful in the world. Celebrities, politicians, probably musicians, Playboy bunnies, who fucking knows? They're all in it. Some of those people had already threatened Virginia to try to keep her quiet. From the beginning, Virginia and I understood that this would have to be a meticulously written book to ensure accuracy, of course, but also to protect her from those who would have preferred she stay silent. I want to say explicitly why Virginia opted not to stay silent, which certainly would have been easier for her. From the beginning, she told me she believed that her story would help other people, not just survivors of Epstein's cruelty, but any person, male or female, who had ever been coerced into sex against his or her will. Over and over during the hundreds of conversations and text and email exchanges Virginia and I had over 4 years, she insisted that she wanted to be portrayed authentically with all her flaws. She wanted the world to know who she really was so that survivors of abuse who might read her words would feel less alone. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Belinda, Adriano. Hello, guys. Cool. Thank you for joining me. I'm just reading a book. All right, back to it. All right, she hoped that if she painted a real portrait of her suffering, it would inspire more people to fight to make changes she believed were so desperately needed. So true. Prime among some is the legislation to eliminate statute of limitation provisions for sexual abuse of children. That's a good one. All those laws really need to be changed, rape and child abuse. But yeah, that's another fucking live. All right. Virginia was one of the most sweethearted and generous people I've ever met. She was devoted to her 3 children, whom she shared with her husband, Robbie Jouffre, from whom she was later estranged. All right, so maybe she didn't adore him, but she did at first. I know that. He basically saved her, I think, and got her way out of that hole. So he was her saving grace in a way. But anyways, she was also fierce and determined, and that fierceness is what enabled me, at her direction, to tell her whole story. And just as importantly, to interrogate it, to confirm it, and ultimately to help create the inspiring but also heartbreaking account you're holding in your hands. When it came to corroborating the abuse Virginia had suffered as a child, I tracked down a childhood friend who was incredibly forthcoming about the abuse this friend endured by her stepfather, the same man who sexually abused Virginia as a child and who later was convicted for abusing yet another minor. Her input and kindness were a huge source of comfort to Virginia. In consultation with a professional fact checker, I also spoke at length to Virginia's mother, her husband, her former boyfriend, and her 2 brothers to whom Virginia had recounted the abuse by both her father and his friend. I reached out to Virginia's father multiple times seeking his response to his daughter's allegations. He responded by strenuously denying them. And then it's got an asterisk, and it says, his response reads in full, the dad's. Just to straighten this out, I never abused my daughter and didn't know that Forrest did that either. And if I had known about that, I would have been very angry and taken care of the situation. I gave my daughter everything she ever wanted and never ever touched her sexually. I never even knew that was going on with Epstein until I read about it online and getting calls from the news agencies. There is so much that they are getting wrong, even her middle name. It is Virginia Lee Roberts, not Virginia Louise. I am a moral person, and I believe that men who take advantage of young children should be prosecuted and then castrated. It pisses me off that someone would write that I would ever abuse my children. As a father, I only try to give my children a good life. All right, that's a pretty good statement, I would say. I don't know. We'll see. Virginia's firsthand account of her time in Epstein and Maxwell's orbit was supported by thousands of pages of public court documents, including sworn depositions and Epstein flight logs. These documents contain the full names of many of the men who Virginia alleged she had been trafficked. Clinton. Their contents are supported by numerous other sources, including interviews that Virginia gave to the press, all of which I reviewed, and published books on the subject by authors such as the Miami Herald's Julie K. Brown, Virginia's former attorney, Brad Edwards, and former U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Berman. I also spoke to many of Virginia's attorneys, including Edwards, Sigrid McCauley, and Brittany Henderson. Writing the book involves several stops and starts in part due to struggles Virginia had with her health, but all along she insisted that she wanted the book published. She wanted all her suffering to be accomplished to have accomplished something. And if she could help one survivor of abuse, she said it would be worth all the effort. In October 2024, she felt ready to resume. We met to finalize the manuscript. I returned to Australia, where I had already visited her in 2022 to go over it in detail with her side by side one more time. We read the manuscript again, with me taking short breaks to revise certain sections, then returning to read them to her again. By the end of that visit, she approved all the book's contents, save for this note. What's this? Keep working, you will get famous. Thanks. God bless you. God bless you too. All right. At the end of the visit, she approved all the book's contents, save for this note by me added after her passing. She was deeply grateful to the people from all corners of her life who had supported her efforts to tell her story. Then on the night of January 9th, the morning of January 10th in Australia, Virginia called me in a state of extreme distress. She said that the previous evening she and Robbie had an argument and he had assaulted her. We talked for a long time. She sent me photographs of her face, which appeared discolored and swollen. Mine looks discolored and swollen right now. What the fuck's going on with me? All right. I made sure she was in a safe place and offered to reach out to her and her mother, her older brother, both of whom I contacted. Virginia reported the incident to police in Western Australia, but they did not charge Robbie with any crime. Robbie made allegations of his own, which resulted in a restraining order against Virginia that prohibited contact with her children. That's bullshit. This profoundly hurt Virginia. She couldn't stand being out of touch with her kids. I totally know how that goes. The alleged January incident was not without precedent. At one point, Virginia had told me about a time in 2015 in Colorado when Robbie was arrested after assaulting her. I tracked down a sheriff's deputy who worked the case. He spoke to me at length about the incident and said that a restraining order had been put in place that prohibited Robbie from returning home. But according to the sheriff's department, documentation of that incident was no longer available to the public. That's weird. Virginia presented this episode as an isolated incident and said that for the sake of the kids, okay, she didn't want it to appear in the book. Well, it is now. That was a terrible chapter that had occurred during a very tense time in their lives, she told me, and she and Robbie had worked hard to put it behind them. Robbie, too, said as much when, in person, he referred to the incident obliquely. I knew that there were all kinds of reasons that a woman who had been domestically abused might choose to stay silent. I also knew people who are victims of child abuse are considerably more likely, 15 times more likely, according to one widely cited study. I really got into statistics, so whatever. But to be victims of abuse later in life, I abide by her wishes. Things took a turn for the worse in March 2025 when Virginia was injured in a car accident. Virginia and I spoke for the last time on March 31st, 2025. She had been in the hospital, she said, but had left because she didn't agree with her doctors. I begged her to go back to the hospital, and she said she would. But first she wanted to talk about her kids, desperate to know how they were. Before we hung up, she said, "If it's in God's hands, I'm not scared. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go, but I want the book published." I begged her one more time to let her doctors do their jobs. Right. Doctors do their jobs nowadays? Okay. I can tell you about that, too. This book is, like, very parallel. All right, anyway. "I want you around for the rest of my life," I said. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too. The next day on April 1st, Virginia sent me a Deanie von Muffling, I don't know what the fuck that is, her longtime publicist, an email stating clearly her desire to publish the book. It read in part, "We obviously know Virginia wanted this book published," and it is. So we got it. We did it. We did it. All right, so it says in part, I am reaching out to discuss an important matter regarding my book, Nobody's Girl. It is my heartfelt wish that this work be published, regardless of my circumstances at the time. The content of this book is crucial as it aims to shed light on the systematic failures that allow the trafficking of vulnerable individuals across borders. It is imperative that the truth is understood and that the issues surrounding this topic are addressed both for the sake of justice and awareness. In the event of my passing, I would like to ensure that Nobody's Girl is still released. I believe it has the potential to impact many lives and foster necessary discussions about these grave injustices. I kindly ask for your assistance in making this wish a reality. Thank you for your support, patience, and most importantly, love. On April 5th, Virginia released a statement to People magazine stating publicly for the first time that her husband had abused her and specifically citing the alleged assault on January 9th. The statement read in part, I was able to fight back against Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. I call her Ghislaine and him Eggstein. Those are my nicknames for him, but I'll keep that out. Unless you want the nicknames, then I will. Anyway, who abused and trafficked me, but I was unable to escape the domestic violence in my marriage until recently. After my husband's latest physical assault, I can no longer stay silent. Robbie's attorney declined to comment on Virginia's allegations, citing ongoing court proceedings. Less than 3 weeks later, Virginia was dead. She died on April 25th, 2025. So she died like a month after she saw this girl to revise the book or whatever. That's sad. Anyway, I don't know. Hopefully this is okay. Less than 3 weeks later, Virginia was dead, having committed suicide at her remote farm. Before this book went to press, Virginia's two brothers and their wives came forward with their concerns that the book she wrote underplayed the domestic abuse that she had allegedly experienced. They publicly offered their account of what they believed was long-standing abuse that their sister had suffered during her marriage, and they stressed the importance of publishing her memoir with further context to avoid undermining her credibility. At the same time, they expressed their support for the publication of Virginia's memoir and affirmed its importance in holding abusers to account. As I've reflected on Virginia's life since her passing, all that she accomplished, and all the suffering that she experienced, I haven't stopped thinking about those last 3 hearts she sent us. They will stick with me forever, because despite the unspeakable cruelty she endured through her life, Virginia opted to keep her heart open and, whenever possible, to lead with love. The world could learn something from Virginia. It was truly an honor to spend 4 years by her side, helping her tell her story and ensuring that her legacy lives on. Amy Wallace, August of 2025. And these are the hearts that they're talking about. Right there, if you can see them. Yeah. So that's the note from the collaborator of the book. And now we're going to do the introduction of the book, and then I'm going to stop after that, and then we can pick up on the next couple chapters on another live. But I really want you guys to let me know in the comments if you want to do this or not, because I don't want to read this whole book, I guess. Well, maybe I will. I don't care. I don't really need an audience, do I? No, I don't. So anyways, introduction. Life is not a private affair. A story and its lessons are only made useful if shared. Dan Millman, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Just a few hours ago, a visit to the Louvre seemed like a brilliant way to cheer myself up. But now the sadness overtakes me. I am so far from home. It is June 2021, and I am on the second floor of the world's largest art museum, surrounded by strangers and yet very much alone. It is a weird time to be in Paris, which was just reopened after COVID-19 swept the globe, and the streets are largely empty of tourists who have only now been allowed to fly into France. I look like a tourist, another blonde American mom in blue jeans and ballet flats, but I did not come to Paris to sightsee. I'm here to do a job that never gets any easier. I'm here to stand up to those who have hurt me. I'm here to reclaim my life. Leaving my hotel this morning, I felt strong. The sun sparkled and the air was warm as if to make fun of all the sweaters I'd packed. I thought of my husband Robbie back in Australia where we live. I knew he was hosting a sleepover for our 3 kids and 3 of their friends, and I could imagine him frazzled as he telephoned our favorite pizza place and ordered way too many pies. "You're my little warrior," my husband likes to tell me, and he said it before I boarded the plane from Perth to Paris. I can't always see myself as Robbie does, but today, as I set off on foot and headed toward the sun, I felt connected to his fierce ideal of me. From my hotel on the Rue Scribe, I easily found my way to the Avenue d'Opera and headed south toward the Louvre. It had been 20 years since I walked these streets, but it seemed as if I knew the route. Visiting the museum was a gift I decided to give myself, a few hours away from my lawyers and their questions. For days they had been grilling me, and I understood why. In order to maximize the impact of testimony I was here to give, I had to be focused, ready for anything. But I badly needed a break. When a morning off presented itself, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Now I made a beeline for the Louvre's iconic metal and glass pyramid, scanned my ticket, and rode the escalator down. My plan was to relax and wander the galleries, escaping my ugliest memories by immersing myself in pure beauty. I like her already. I can tell me and her would have been friends, I think. If I would have known her, I think we would have been friends. Because we both were massage therapists, and yeah, I don't know. Whatever. That's another thing we have in common, I guess. But all right. For a while, everything went as I imagined. I lost myself in the larger-than-life bronze and marble sculptures, texting my husband photos of the 4 captives, a quarter of soldiers in shackles, and a quartet of soldiers in shackles and of Hercules fighting an oversized snake. I was in no rush. I figured I'd get to the Mona Lisa eventually, but then, unsure exactly where I wanted to go, I climbed a flight of stairs, turned a corner, and froze. "I know this room," screamed a voice in my head. I'd been in this precise spot 2 decades ago when I was just 17. The room I am in is painted blood red and is dominated by a huge tapestry, a depiction of Louis the 14th, I think, garish bedchamber. In 2001, when Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell took the teenage me into this room for the first time, they had been sexually abusing and trafficking me for months. Now I am 37 years old, a wife and mother, a full-fledged adult, and it's been 2 years since Epstein died in jail. Still, I can practically see him standing next to me, admiring the tapestry whose dark palette he was determined to mimic in the decor of his opulent Manhattan townhouse. In my mind's eye, I imagine Maxwell beside him as always, a molester with posh manners and an aristocratic pedigree. G-Max, as she called herself, played den mother to Epstein's dysfunctional family of underage girls. I was one of those girls, and I spent more than 25 months in their house of shame. Even decades later, I can still remember how much I feared them both. I can't believe nobody is on here right now. Like, nobody wants to hear this story. I'm shocked. Anyways, it's pretty good already. My ears are ringing. As I stand here, my rational mind knows that they cannot hurt me anymore. A year after Epstein's lifeless body was found in a cell. I call bullshit on that. Anyway, Maxwell was arrested, and at this moment in 2021, she remains in jail awaiting trial on various charges, including sex trafficking a minor. Yet still I feel haunted by their hungry ghosts. Fighting dizziness, I focus my eyes on the elaborate wall hanging in front of me. It depicts a young man kneeling before the king, begging forgiveness as a crowd looks on. I glance at my feet, rooted to the parquet floor. My breath catches, and the familiar thrum of a panic attack rolls over me. That sucks. I hate when that happens. Even as a child, I never liked to cause a scene. I would rather envelop my pain, holding the turmoil in my chest instead of risking more danger by screaming and letting it out. So I stay quiet, trying to soothe myself. I look down at my pretty fingernails, freshly manicured and painted a glossy ivory. I read the bracelet on my left wrist, a gift from my dear friend that spells out badass in lettered beads. I took one careful step and then another. Hey, I got those beads on right now. I got for Cry Pete and Don't Go Giving Up. And then I got Jim in them on this one. And then I got Jim's bracelet that I made for him for his birthday, so you can't see that. But there's Jim in them. Anyway, they're a good channel if you want to check them out. They're funny. All right, anyways. I take one step and then another. My stomach churns, but I keep going. Please, I beg without speaking. Please don't let me faint in this exquisite place. I find a bench and sit, looking around for exit signs. I can make it, I tell myself, a mantra I've relied on so many times before. I know from experience that I should not yet try to run. Trauma is such a cunning enemy. Those of us who've survived its terrors often marvel at how quickly it can recede, at least at first. Once you get to safety, your visible wounds, your cuts, your bruises heal and fade. Your psyche, too, revives like a drowned man who, pulled from the depths, somehow spits up dark water and opens his eyes. But recovering victims like me know too well how trauma lurks in the shadows, always there. No matter how many years go by or how many therapists you see, it can rise, unbidden, seemingly out of nowhere. A song on the radio may summon it, or the scent of a stranger's cologne. For you, the trigger probably won't be a wall-sized tapestry in the Louvre, but you never know. I've come to France to stand up to one of Epstein's co-conspirators, the modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. During his years, I think he committed suicide too. Bullshit. Anyway, these guys are cowards. They would never commit suicide, okay? Like, never. All right. Brunel became a scout of some renown. He boasted of launching the careers of Jerry Hall, Mila Jovovich, Rebecca Romajan, Sharon Stone, and Christy Turlington. But he was also known to solicit sex from young women whose careers he managed. Now, Brunel is in custody and is awaiting trial on charges of rape, sexual harassment, and human trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation. But lately, he's been asking if he can be free in the months before his court date. Gosh, that's why I traveled here from Australia, to help keep Brunel, who procured so many young girls for Epstein, behind bars. In the sworn testimony I'm here to give, I will assert, as I've asserted before, that Brunel repeatedly raped and abused me. While in Paris, I will also connect French prosecutors with other victims of Brunel who have sought me out after seeing me on TV and on social media, and I will turn over my handwritten notes about what he and Epstein and Maxwell put me and others through. French prosecutors tell me I'm a critical witness because, unlike many of Epstein victims who were abused in a single location, I spent more than 2 years traveling the world with him and Maxwell. I knew their cruel habits and those of the men like Brunel, to whom they trafficked me. I saw these men, endured them up close. Can it be any wonder that I struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder? But speaking out as I'm doing now cost me more than an anxiety attack or an interrupted outing to an art museum. Coming to Paris to reveal the past means missing out on my life in the present. My 5th grader Ellie has her first school dance this weekend and has dyed her gorgeous dark hair purple to protest my absence. Robbie texts me a photo, and I have to admit it looks pretty good. Just now, Ellie texts me what she wants to complete her grunge outfit with a pair of fishnet stockings, and despite the 6-hour time difference, we have scheduled a FaceTime call so I can weigh in, yes or no. When I was a teen, I too was a grunge fan, but still, I think 5th grade is a little early for fishnets. I think that too. I actually thought that when I read that part. That's funny. Well, I'm glad that Allie and I have plans to discuss it. I feel sad our debate will have to be over the phone. If I were home in Perth, I'd commemorate Ellie's first dance by taking a million photos. Instead, I'll be fighting loneliness and jet lag in a tiny room 9,000 miles away. I have to believe, however, that my trip to Paris benefits my kids. Years ago, after a teacher asked one of our children what their mother did for a living, Robbie and I put our heads together and decided that the truth was too complicated, so they should simply answer, "My mom fights bad guys." Since then, more than one teacher has wrongly assumed I am a cop. I'm not a cop, and I've never claimed to be an angel either, but I hope I have done some good. Seeking to silence me, my powerful enemies have threatened to bankrupt me and to have me killed. I haven't stopped talking. When I was a sex slave, I had no say. I have promised myself that I will never have no say again. So, did my demons cause me to flee a world-class museum today before I could see my favorite painting? Yes, they did. Did I retreat afterward to my hotel to engage in one of my favorite calming rituals? Binge watching the most satisfying of TV's police procedurals, Law and Order? Yes, that happened too. But I won't let my demons win. 3 days from now, I will return to the Louvre to sit across from that spooky tapestry and take back possession of that red-walled room. I will ground myself in my hard-won strength. Then afterward, I'll finally track down the Mona Lisa to say a quick hello. A few days later, I will face off with Brunel in an 8-hour closed-door hearing, answering the most dehumanizing questions you can imagine about what he, then a man in his mid 50s, did to me when I was 17, 18, and 19 years old. In an interview with NBC News later the same day, I will explain that I gave testimony against Brunel because I wanted him to know that he no longer has the power over me, that I am a grown woman now, and I've decided to hold him accountable for what he did to me and so many others. Then I will deliver a call to arms that will soon be broadcast around the world. I'm urging more witnesses, even if it's outside of the statute of limitations, to come forward. I'll say, explaining that even something as simple as confirming Brunel's whereabouts on a particular day can help those who are seeking to convict him of his crimes. Yeah, even if the statute of limitations is up, I would still go and try and report it because it will be documented then, and that would help out with further cases or if anybody else were to come forward, you know? All right. All right, the judge is listening. I will say the authorities are listening. I'm listening. We want to help put this monster away where he belongs. We can't do that unless we all work together. I know about monsters. As a child, I suffered nearly every kind of abuse: incest, parental neglect, severe corporal punishment, molestation, rape. As a teen, I had been sexually trafficked by another pedophile even before I met Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But these two doubled down on my suffering. In my years with them, they lent me out to scores of wealthy, powerful people. I was habitually used and humiliated, and in some instances, choked, beaten, and bloodied. I believed that I might die a sex slave. Then, just after my 19th birthday, I met someone who seemed to give a damn about me. I took a chance, and in 2002, I escaped. I wish somebody would give a damn about me. As I write this, I've enjoyed 22 years of freedom. That period has not always been busy or easy, but I am beyond grateful for it. My life since 2002 has been marked by several turning points. None more. I think, 2004 is when I got my massage license. All right, anyway. My life since 2002 has been marked by several turning points, none more important than when unexpectedly I became a parent. Doctors had told me that I was highly unlikely, but they were wrong. My son Alex came first, then Tyler. I loved being the mom of my two boys. But when Robbie and I had our third child, a daughter we named Ellie, I felt something shift inside me. Given what I had been through, I know that sexual predators don't stop until they're made to stop. For years, however, I'd hung back, hoping someone else would take the lead in holding abusers accountable. Ellie ended that period of passivity. Looking into my daughter's eyes, I knew I had to act to keep others from suffering the way I had. Not long after that, I began to fight. That's what I try to do with my own daughter. Like, I never want my daughter to go through what I went through. And I'm so probably, really just, overbearing, I guess, maybe with it, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, you know. And I don't want to. Yeah. Anyway, one of the first things I did was to try to answer some hard questions. Was the abuse I suffered merely the result of bad luck? Had my family's shameful secrets marked me for tragedy? Or is there something going on in our culture that contributed to my bad situation? There's always been evil in the world. But human trafficking, the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act is particularly venal. Is that how you say it? Venal? Venal? Venal. I'll look it up. Especially when the victims are minors. Underreported and understudied, child sex trafficking is not just a problem that exists in third world countries, as many people mistakenly assume. In America, incidents have been reported in all 50 states, and in recent decades, internet and social media have made it easier for the traffickers to make contact with their victims. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, during the COVID-19 pandemic, predators took advantage of the children being online more, which resulted in a 106% increase in cyber tip line reports of suspected child sexual exploitation in just 1 year. Wow, that's crazy. I wonder, yeah, that's weird. My point, while Jeffrey Epstein is dead and gone, there are many others around the world who are still committing the same kinds of crimes that he did. There are countless victims of sex trafficking who have not yet escaped their exploitative situations, as I was fortunate enough to do. Those girls and boys, women and men, will likely attempt to flee between 3 and 7 times before they succeed, according to a recent research. Many of them will not be offered by a single caring stranger. Wait. Many of them will not be offered help by a single caring stranger. In America, where only 4% of law enforcement agencies have personnel dedicated to exposing human trafficking, most victims must rely on their own wits and luck to survive. That's not good. I want to change that. Good. I want not just to hold abusers accountable, but also to challenge the ways that all too often our legal system protects those abusers. It is estimated that most victims of childhood sexual abuse don't come forward and share their experiences until they're in their 40s or later. In my view, survivors of sex trafficking and abuse should be able to seek justice whenever they are ready to do so. But many states have statutes of limitations that make that impossible. These are systematic problems that no single person can solve, which is why it's important for survivors to unite. As I said in that NBC interview in Paris in 2021, no matter how weak survivors of sexual abuse are made to feel, we will always be stronger when we work together. In recent years, bits and pieces of my story have been told and retold by others in countless books, podcasts, interviews, articles, movies, miniseries, and televised specials. But until now, I have never told my whole story. Doing so allows me to fill in those gaps, to provide context where it's been sorely lacking, and in key places to set the record straight. Young girls, and boys too, don't end up being sexually trafficked in a vacuum. Serial sexual abuse doesn't happen to them, to us, out of the blue. In many cases, we were first abandoned by those who claim to love us. By describing my history, I hope to help others prevent it from being repeated. Nobody experiences extreme trauma and emerges unscathed. I certainly haven't. Even before I met Epstein, I'd experienced awful things that made some observers label me his perfect victim. But I was so resilient, or I wouldn't be here now. I still have night terrors and panic attacks. That's probably why I have mine. I still have moments of feeling worthless. Yeah, I definitely have that. Perhaps I will, probably. But on many days, especially when I've been able to help another survivor, I thrive. That's totally true too. My hope is that this book can aim some light at the darkness and force it to crawl back into its cave. Once I was silent, but now I have found my voice. This book is a result of that metamorphosis. Because my husband is right about me, I am a warrior with a story to tell. So that was the introduction of the book. Part 1 is called Daughter, and we can get into that another time. But I thought this would be long enough to do for today. So that's just an introduction to Virginia. I thought she's very likable. I think we have a lot in common. I think I really would have been friends with her if I would have known her in real life. Yeah, so thank you for listening. Thank you for the people that came, and God bless you too. And yeah, I will talk to you soon. I don't really know when I'm going to come back and do this again, but just let me know in the comments if you thought it was good. If you don't, please let me know that too. I'm totally fine. I want honest feedback. Okay, guys? All right. Love you. Bye-bye. Yeah.